know life is like a game of cards, and the hand you are dealt with is determinism. The way you play it is free will. So working with children or working with anyone, or imagine yourself having a child who was self-harming and had suicidal ideations or anorexia or bulimic tendencies or anxiety or severe case of depression. This is true for some people. A young girl who had been in multiple therapies, doctors, specialists, and been admitted to hospital multiple times, as well as psychiatric wards. When a friend of mine was telling me this story, and she accepted her as a case, and when she accepted this young girl and believed that she couldn't be fixed, at first meeting her, she explained that this is not therapy and that she wasn't there to understand what she did. She was there to help her understand what the past thoughts or traumas were, but rather to understand how her behavior is running and how she can change that. And if you've learned anything in NLP or strategic psychotherapy, you would understand that toward and away meta programs, and that people are motivated away pain and towards pleasure, whether it's pain that causes pleasure or addictions that's causing pleasure of any sort. So how is it possible that the physical pain of a razor to the skin of starving yourself not painful? One of the first things that this therapist said to this client of hers was that she was impressed, seriously impressed. And she said, I can't go a day without food or get seriously hungry, and I sure as heck do not have the courage to take a razor to my skin. She bluntly said that to her. So we got curious. How is it that these are the best options of behavior? As it turns out that when this young girl felt intense negative emotions, the cutting would reduce the emotional pain. Now, anytime you can rapidly and predictively change state to a more positive state, you will create a habit. Basically, this client had a habit of feeling better, not a habit of cutting. The cutting was just the behavior. Then, the therapist asked, what happens when she doesn't want to cut? What does she do then? And the young girl replied, I imagine myself cutting and then how disappointed I will be and how upset mum will be. Bingo. She doesn't have a strategy for managing emotions other than to cut and to feel better, or to imagine cutting and the intensifying the negative feeling and wanting to cut even more. Even worse, she has a not strategy, which is where you think of the thing you don't want and you attempt not to do it. But that almost never works. Think of that time you tried to convince yourself not to at the chocolate, not to have a beer or a glass of wine, or that your promise you made not to be on your phone as much. You will need to think of that thing, which usually also involves intensifying the desire to do it and to try to shut it off. It takes willpower, and most people find it difficult or even impossible using a not strategy. As much better option is to use a to-do strategy that involves the same emotional benefit with a more desirable behavior. For this client, all we needed was a healthier and more desirable habit to reduce the emotions. In NLP and strategic psychotherapy, we call this a strategy. So together we produce a better strategy for reducing emotional pain and install it within the person. We also work on reducing the emotional load of some of her external anchors, and in 2 sessions, this young girl was actually changed, a young changed woman. Now, when this other therapist met with her friends and family, they called her a magic woman. While that is good for the ego, it really annoyed her, because if someone else had these tools, even the young girl could have got the help she needed a long time ago to save her family and her friends from the stress and heartache that they went through. Since then, this young girl has gone on to complete her own NLP practitioner and master practitioner certification to help other children. And it's just so beautiful and passionate. It's just such a beautiful, passionate story. And I think it's really important in essence to understand that when people are running a certain behavior or response to emotional pain that they're trying to block is not to judge them and to try to understand where they're coming from and understand the reason behind their behavior as such, to judge the behavior in itself, because the behavior isn't what is justifying their characteristics. It's more so it's shutting down what they don't want to feel or understand within themselves. And if we can get our hands to that, we can save a lot of lives by trying to be more empathetic, by trying to be more open-minded and to give and take, and really do check on people and see how they are. And check the trainers out there and the therapies that you have available, and give these notes, keep them handy and give them to the people that you know that may be struggling. You never know, they may be open to change and to consider, speaking to someone like this. And I think the importance of holding that care factor in society that we lack so much right now is really important if most of us can re-embrace this and re-deliver this back to the society that is pretty much fulfilling our children and waiting for this generation to be something greater than hopefully what we were.